So it's 2019 and being a new year, why not try something new for you, the real students, and I'm going to review a television show, which is something I don't really do. Now, obviously I watch a lot of TV, but I don't necessarily do videos about it. But with Punisher Season 2, I got a screener copy, so I get a little head start on everybody else's streaming. And you know what? I wanted to share my thoughts on what I think is one of the best Netflix Marvel properties, at least in terms of seasons, that Marvel has done thus far. Now the tragic thing is, of course, they're not really going to do any more, and we're all kind of waiting on the word for Jessica Jones and the Punisher to follow, Daredevil, Luke Cage, and that other crappy show where they'll all get canceled and eventually Disney will have its own streaming service, so we can assume that this is probably the last season of Punisher on Netflix. Now the other catch is, because I'm going to discuss the entire season, if you want to go in completely fresh, then don't watch the video. But I promise you there won't be any major spoilers. I will, however, talk about some of the new characters because they play a big part in the season. But if you don't want to know anything about the new season, well then wait, stream it, come back, and watch the video then. So right off the bat, this great season actually starts with one of the best first episodes of a season, again, in a Marvel property on Netflix that I've seen in a while, and that's because they tried something new with the character. And I love this because we see a brand new Frank, or at least we see a Frank who's trying to make peace with all of that garbage that happened to him and becoming the Punisher and trying to live a new life. But before he finds the big trouble, he finds a little bit of trouble in a bartender played by Alexa Dablos, and I think she's one of the most underrated actors out there. Now, of course, she is in The Man in the High Castle. She's done a few movies, and if you're a Joss Whedon nerd like me, you know she had a reoccurring role in Angel, but she's really good in this. They have some tremendous chemistry, and they both play that kind of lonely, hurt soul very well, and they have a lot in common, and I loved seeing that humanity in Frank because of her. But unfortunately, we only get to see the two of them interact in that one episode, and that's all I'm going to say about that, because the big trouble has to find Frank, and it finds Frank in the form of Amy, a kid, a runaway, who's obviously in trouble by some unseen force because she knows something that we have to find out about. And I won't give you any spoilers as to what the reason is that she's being hunted, but basically they're trying to kill her. Frank steps in. So I really like this plot, and I really like the character of Amy. I thought the actress did a phenomenal job, and again, she and Frank have some great chemistry in a much different way. It's a surrogate father-daughter thing. At first they kind of start off like he's kidnapped her when he's really trying to protect her, but then they start to trust one another, and I love that. My only little complaint is the fact that she's supposed to be 16 at least. You don't really know a lot about her, and you don't know what's the truth. In fact, you only find out her name's Amy in like the 3rd episode, but you look at this actress and you say to yourself, you're not 16. It's fine, it happens all the time. They cast 20-somethings as teenagers, but why not just make her a 20-something? And the fact is, she has scenes where she interacts with her street friends, and some of them look 13, and you kind of think to yourself, yeah, there's something just not kosher about that. But those aren't the only new characters we're introduced to, and the best one has to come in the form of John Pilgrim, played by Josh Stewart, a guy who I've not really seen in a whole heck of a lot, but he does a phenomenal job with this role. John is a fantastic character. He's threatening, he's creepy, he's intimidating, and yet he's also sympathetic. His backstory is phenomenal. It's layered. You get to really find out a lot about him and why he's doing the things he does, the life he led before this. He's got his own secrets, and you know what? It's one of the best characters that they've really created for this show, if not the best. And one of the best parts of this season, I think, is you start to find yourself not cheering for John, but at least becoming a little more sympathetic of his plight and the fact that he's not really the real villain of the piece. But of course, that has something to do with the fact that some of the writing within this season also had a little bit of a fault. They couldn't quite find the balance in terms of subplots all the time. And you're probably asking yourself, well, what about Jigsaw? I mean, he was the main villain of the first one, if you want to call him Jigsaw. And you know what? This has got some issues. I didn't really like Ben Barnes acting as the truest Jigsaw I guess they've had in this. And we all know that Marvel Netflix does a little twist with their villains. They don't quite do the same versions you've seen on the big screen or even the versions you've seen in the comic. And with this one, even with the scars, Ben Barnes is a very attractive man. So he's not really the disfigured Jigsaw you see in the comics, or even the awful second, what was the name of that? Punisher Warzone, yeah, that thing. he's not that Jigsaw. It's more of a Jigsaw of his mind because of the trauma that he suffered at the hands of Frank in the first season. He now can't really piece together who he is, and they give them this hint that they say, we're trying to put together the Jigsaw of his mind. So what this means is that it gave Ben Barnes a lot to play with his insanity, but he really chewed up the scenery most of the time. I didn't really feel like he should be taken seriously. He was always kind of rubbing his head too, which was the whole Jon Bernthal thing in The Walking Dead, and I never really got into his character or felt intimidated by him. Maybe that was the point, to make him a little more sympathetic too. And part of that sympathy also comes with a new character in Kristen, who's the doctor, the psychiatrist, taking care of Jigsaw and trying to really help him through all of his trauma. But it feels like something we've seen before, and they've done it in comics and animated shows, but it seemed like something Marvel actually kind of borrowed from DC. It's very much a Harley Quinn / Joker kind of romance, where you've got the insane criminal mastermind, and you've got the doctor who almost immediately has the hots for him. I just felt like it was really contrived. This isn't a spoiler because the first time you see them together, you know that they're going to become a couple, and you know what? I'm telling you now, it just doesn't work on almost any level for me. I actually think it was the weakest element of the entire season. I would have gotten rid of the entire love story relationship. It worked with Kingpin, and I think maybe that's why they were trying it, the whole Vanessa thing, or a woman who kind of breaks bad as she goes along with what her man was doing. But it was also kind of creepy because for Marvel to do something like this, when they've already created Jessica Jones and they tried to create a character who stands up to abuse, who had been abused herself, and really tried to make strong female characters in all of their Netflix properties, this one is just a woman who kind of puts up with a lot of abuse from Billy, and I never understood why she was doing it. She looks genuinely terrified half of the time she's with him, and then she just blurts out the fact that she loves him. I will say there's also that kind of typical pause in the middle of the season that we've seen a couple times in other Netflix Marvel properties, where it just seems like the middle episodes are really filler. It's not as bad though, by any means. In fact, I think it's probably the best filler episodes that Marvel has done because they really find a good balance. In almost every episode in this season, they find some moments of development, some moments of pushing the plot forward, and some moments of action, which is not something you can say about any of the seasons we've seen before, where we actually get comic book action in every episode. And that's what The Punisher should be. But that actually follows my favorite episode of the season, which is episode 203, where they get trapped in a small town sheriff's office and John and his forces have them surrounded. It's kind of an homage to Assault on Precinct 13, and it's really well done. And you know what? All the smaller actors who have featured parts in that episode do a tremendous job. I actually believe all of them and want to see more of them. Other than the pilot and episode 3, I won't really discuss anything other than the finale, which sadly was a little disappointing because they kind of wrapped it up way too quickly. That's all I'm going to say, but it really seemed like they got to the last episode of the season and they went, right, we have to finish all of these stories. Okay, well, what do we do? And I gotta be honest, I didn't really like Punisher season 1. This season is phenomenal. It's so much better than the first one. But that final episode, I don't know what to say about it. You didn't really get any kind of conclusion. I mean, like concrete conclusion. There were a lot of things left a little bit open. There were a lot of things that were just kind of cut off, and yeah, I guess that's kind of a conclusion, but that's not the one I wanted to see after investing 2 seasons into the show. But those are minor details, and it's too bad that this probably won't get a 3rd season, obviously on Netflix. I hope the show lives on like the other Marvel properties, except Iron Fist, you can leave that one out. But the fact is, I thought they were at the top of their game. I thought that Marvel and the writing team, especially Steve Lightfoot, who created the show and wrote a lot of the episodes, did a phenomenal job at finally balancing these shows, especially Punisher Season 2. And kudos goes to the acting team as well. There's some awesome cameos by Corbin Burnson and Annette O'Toole, who I guess made the jump from Smallville to Punisher, but they do a great job. Great new characters in this season. Frank does an awesome job of being Frank, which is basically shouting at people like this, and then, you know, occasionally Jon Bernthal, when he talks to people, you know, he just looks away. It's like, you know, I don't want to look the people in the eyes. You get everything you expect, especially the violence, which is what you want to see. But I gotta be honest, if you want to see the Jigsaw Punisher storyline mix or for them to really do anything together or for there to be some kind of conclusion about you don't get it. You just don't get it. But what you do get is a supremely well-balanced show, which is definitely worth the watch, and I highly recommend Punisher Season 2. So that's it, real students. What did you think of the video? It's the first time I did a season of television and a video on that. If you liked it, leave a comment in the aptly named comment section below. Be sure to also come back once you've watched Punisher Season 2 and let me know what your thoughts were. So thanks so much for watching, real students, but until next time, school's out. Hey Real students, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to Real School, click that round Real School logo right beside me. Also click that damn notification bell so you're aware of all of Real School's new content. You can follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link in the description below or the button down there, and you can become part of my Patreon team.